Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Albandian. I'm here today with Greg Crawford, my colleague, and one of the speakers for ISAR 2022. And I am the coordinator of this year for ISAR 2022. It's happening August 25th through the 29th, and it's being held at the Westin in Westminster, Colorado, which is right between Denver and Boulder. So it's going to be gorgeous in August. It's got the Rocky Mountains, very close to Boulder and close to Denver. So lots of things to explore and see. And of course, 100 speakers and a ton of lectures for you to enjoy. And Gray is giving one of those. And just to tell you a little bit about Gray, in case you don't know, he is a practicing natal and horary astrologer who lives in Olympia, Washington, not too far from me. Gray brings a rational, imaginative,
relational.
Good. There we go. Relational.
There's not much rational. I'm not sure how much rationality is part of my work, but
we'll just keep going with that. Relational, imaginative, and psychological approach. I like practice. It works for me. Symbolism of astrology, using techniques drawn from ancient and modern sources. Gray has spoken at UWAC, NORWAC, and the Washington State and Oregon Astrological Associations and the Portland School of Astrology. He writes astrology articles on his site at graycrawford.net and is contributing writer to astrology.com. Yeah, you read over these things and, your brain takes in one thing, and so it decides to go with it. So, it's been a couple of years, Grace, since we as a community have really been able to come together. ISAR was postponed and canceled and postponed in 2020 due to the pandemic. 2021 did not get any better, and it was again postponed to this year. So we are coming together, and the universe willing, that is what is going to happen. And so we don't have plans to do anything else but that. So how are you feeling about meeting up with all your friends?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm also planning to go to NORWAC like a few months before ISAR. So I know between those two conferences, it'll be pretty amazing because there'll be people I'm going to see at both. There'll probably be people that I'm actually going to see at both. Like between those two conferences this year, I'm just imagining there's lots of people that I'm going to see. There's clients I've had that have emailed me, from around the country that I've never met that have, told me they're coming to like ISAR, for example. One of them even, I guess, got one of the scholarships, somebody I never thought I would end up meeting. So yeah, it's pretty cool in that way too.
Yeah, that's
colleagues as well as people you work with, in both situations.
Right. And that's what a couple of the speakers were saying on the interviews is that there are people they've met over the last 2 years via this format of virtual reality that we've been existing in that they've never actually physically in person met, and they're going to be at the conference. So it's a very exciting time in that way to meet up with, like in the old days, meeting up with a pen pal you've been writing to but never met.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
In the virtual reality, we've been able to see each other's faces, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you are doing a lecture on Friday, August 26th, and it's the first lecture session of the whole conference, 9 a.m. in the morning.
I didn't actually realize that.
Yeah, it's the first lecture session of the conference, and it's on Eros, necessity, and the creative thresholds. So tell us a bit more about that. What is this about?
Yeah, so, I was asked to speak on the mythological track. So I knew that I was going to have to put something together involving mythology. And because I got selected for that track, I was thinking, really, I probably need to, I guess I don't have to, but it made me think, well, primarily I should be sharing a lot of mythology and then obviously connecting that to astrology. And a lot of times people do they want to do mythology about this like Pallas Athena asteroid. They're going to talk about Pallas Athena, or they're going to talk about Mercury, and they're going to talk about the mythology of Mercury, or Gemini, the mythology of Gemini. And there's like these names and these mythologies, and partially because I wanted to be more open to what I want to talk about. And I also wanted to do something that's more using mythology where it's not necessarily tied to the names of things, and just talking about mythology as a way as it is like a psychodynamic, it's a creative process. And some people in astrology don't like when also like, why should you use this name and this mythology? And so I'm just wanting to use it more. How can mythology be used creatively, and how can it assist you in working with clients, and ways that what I'm going to do is talk about in ways that it could be applied to various transits. So this wouldn't necessarily have to just be about a Pluto transit or a Neptune transit. It could be used in a way that could be applied to whatever the situation is you're noticing, if that makes sense.
Well, sure. So what is it about the words eros and necessity? I get creative thresholds.
Mm-hmm.
So what are those words, when you came up with those words in the title?
Yeah.
What is that about?
Yeah. So the central thing I'm looking at here is a situation of somebody being at a creative threshold. And that's one of the reasons people often come to work with me. It's not the only reason, but it's often the case. And I feel like it's common for a lot of astrologers. The reason somebody is wanting to reach out and spend money on getting a consultation is because they want to do something. They feel like they're on this precipice of this big change. They want a more authentic life, a more creative life, which also kind of brings up, I'll talk a little, what does that even mean to want a more creative life or, a more authentic life? And, but their circumstances, they feel limited or constrained or frustrated. It's not just happening. And they're wanting to, like, what do the stars say, or what do the planets say, or what's going on with my astrology chart? What does my astrology chart say I'm supposed to be? They might be thinking that. And so part of this is also just thinking about what's actually helpful, which to me is not actually being like, I know all the answers, I'm going to tell you what you're supposed to be doing. So it's also going to be a little bit about how to even work in a consultation process. And there's often, so those terms eros and necessity, some of the mythology I will use will be some of the creation mythologies, and most likely, among others, Hesiod and some of the Orphic creation. Hesiod, starts with like chaos, and then these like primordial self-formed things like Gaia, like, the earth, she comes right out. And also right at the beginning is Eros. In the Orphic cosmology, it's Ananke, which is necessity. And Chronos are like these serpents that, weave around this, they hatch this egg together. And out of this egg comes Phanes, who, people tend to associate Phanes with Eros. And these ideas of Eros and necessity are sort of fundamental principles to astrology. Like in Plato, Ananke shows up as the mother of the fates, the Morai. And in that famous myth of where, the soul's coming down, the soul's picking their life, and they get this guardian daimon, accompanying them. And then they're coming down, and the fates are weaving, and Ananke's up there with like the planet, the spheres are circling, and the soul comes down, right? And so there's these forces of Ananke as like constraint, necessity, these things that kind of can feel like they're in the way. But it's like, how does that meet with like the eros of, what you want to create? And then part of that is then being, to me, how do you, kind of be with the person you're working with, and kind of be with them more in their sense of frustration, and not being like, we have all the answers, and how can I assist you? And, you're the one that actually knows what you're supposed to, you're the one that has the answers, right?
Absolutely.
And how do you kind of work with that? Does that make sense, that kind of process?
No. That helped me understand where a bit more about that title. And so, folks, look, everyone listening, ISAR is going to be an amazing time. Our tagline is joining hearts and minds. The chart of the time has Leo and Virgo in its sitting in the chart, a lovely Venus moon contact, I believe. So we're joining hearts and minds. Well, we're coming back together to connect as community. Connection is so vitally important in our world, just as humans. And my basic philosophy is that when we are connecting with things around us, we absorb the information we are getting or learning, and we remember it for a much longer time. So when we're having fun, we are integrating our learning when we are connected. So go to ISAR, ISAR 2022.org, ISAR 2022.org, and you can find the schedule, the list of speakers. You can register and join us in August of this year, and let's have some fun and let's learn. So thank you, Gray, for coming and being with me at this time. I know most astrologers these days are very busy.